Let us know at any time if you have problems hearing or seeing the screen. Today we are going to explore how you can empower your teams to specify, define, verify, and validate requirements through the product lifecycle. And we have with us as a guide today PTC expert Jay Kernew. He is a senior technical sales specialist for PTC with over 10 years experience helping engineering teams leverage the benefits of PTC integrity both as an employee and a customer. So we will be recording this webinar today so you can replay it anytime in the future, share it with a team member, and we will actually open up Q&A at the end just to make sure we get through Jay's presentation. So Jay, I will go ahead and give you the floor.
Great. Have you started recording, Becca?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to give you kind of a run through. I've got a few slides I'm going to show. Give you a run through of what requirements and validation looks like in integrity, how you trace requirements to test cases, and also show kind of more sort of downstream tracing capabilities. So how you could actually connect not just to your test cases, but connect your requirements to product assets you might be developing as well. So if you're kind of in a manufactured goods space where you have smart connected products that consist of both hardware and software, you might want to connect your requirements not just to software assets but to hardware assets in a system like PTC's Windchill. So you can connect our requirements and integrity to your bill of materials in Windchill. I'll give you a preview of what that looks like as well. All right, so a few slides we'll go through and then we'll jump into a bit of a product demonstration. So first off, regardless of how good you are at documenting requirements, that's a very good first step is to document your requirements. But any requirements management system or good requirements management system needs to account for change. So it needs to allow for change, it needs to notify people when things have changed, and notify all the kind of downstream stakeholders who are working against those requirements that something has changed against it. That can help with a lot, eliminate a lot of redundant work and make sure that what you deliver at the end actually meets what your requirements look like. And it's just a fact that in manufacturing and software environments, poorly defined and changing requirements are the single largest source of project delays. Right? So lots of things that contribute to it, but poorly defined and changing requirements are number one. So looking at your requirements environment and how poor requirements management can contribute to project failures or project delays, things like not having well-defined requirements, lacking a single source of truth. So you might have lots of requirements documents sitting in something like Word documents, and they might be shared on wikis or are stuck in places like SharePoint. But making sure that everyone's got the latest up-to-date version of requirements and that everyone's looking at the same thing is obviously very important. Having the ability to trace requirements to other assets in the development lifecycle, so tracing down to source code, tracing to your product assets, tracing to test cases, obviously all very important things. If you want to be able to notify people working downstream when things have changed, you need to be able to connect those things. Poor change management around requirements, so lack of workflow around your requirements processes can definitely contribute to delays, and similar to the previous point about traceability, the inability to link your requirements and test cases, or or having traceability to like functional safety or standards in a critical safety environments. So in PTC's requirements validation solution, it's different than other solutions out there. The most common requirements management system in the world today is still Microsoft Word. That is where most folks are still storing their requirements, and that contributes to some of the problems that we saw before, like having lack of traceability, lack of a single source of truth. So when you put this in a system like integrity, then you do gain end-to-end traceability. You get standards-based interchange. So if you want to share requirements to customers, if your customers are, for instance, using something like doors for their requirements management. We do support the requirement interchange format so that you can actually import requirements from a system like doors into Integrity, manage those requirements, and communicate changes back to your customers. Having built-in change and configuration management, so Integrity at its heart is a workflow engine, so it wraps process around changes to all of your items, including your requirements and requirement documents. So you can make sure that changes are authorized. You have a complete history of who made changes, when those changes were made, and you can enforce things like comments to enforce people to kind of put in why they're making changes to those requirements as well. And this is an enterprise management system, so you can have tons of concurrent users on a single system. We have tens of thousands of users working with Integrity today. It handles things like conflict resolutions. You can have multiple people working in the same documents at the same time, and it handles that seamlessly because of its change management capabilities. Test management's built into Integrity as well, and in both the requirements and test management, what we've created is a document-centric authoring experience. So I mentioned that Microsoft Word is the most common system out there for requirements management still. So what we've done in Integrity is we've created a document-centric experience. The authoring experience in Integrity is much like working in Word. You can create headings with rich content. You can format your documents, move content around very easily. So it's for analysts that are used to using systems like Word. You can connect your requirements to those product assets, and we do have suspect tracing capabilities built in so that when requirements change, you can inform all the downstream stakeholders what has changed, right, and notify them that they may be impacted with change. You can notify them through emails, but also we give you visual indicators of the tool to tell you that the requirement that your item is related to has changed, and that gives you a visual indicator to tell you to actually take a look at the requirement change and see how it impacts the item that you're working on, whether it be little applet where you don't have to actually have either Integrity or Windchill open. You can view items or documents from Integrity, look at your part structure in Windchill, see the relationships between them directly in that little applet, so you don't even necessarily have to open either Windchill or Integrity to see that. So we show you the relationships, we show you all the the details and the trace relationships as well. So you can create traces, and then where you have create traces, we'll show you suspect flags for when things or for things that might have changed. And then you can, again, make those determinations if you are impacted by the change or not, and we give you the ability to clear those flags. I mentioned requirements interchange, so if you do have something like doors or where your requirements, we give you a nice way that you can actually port those requirements into Integrity. So we support OLE, so you can have rich content ported over as well as the text. All right, so let me jump over to the tool. So this is PTC integrity. What I have open on my screen now is just showing you what a project hierarchy looks like. So I've got this monitor release 1 project. When I expand that project, I can see all the items that are actually contained within that project. So I've got customer input documents, requirement spec documents, some risk analysis that we've done, design specifications, some test documents as well as test plans, defects that have been created against test cases. So I can see all the project content in a nice little hierarchical view here, and I can drill into that and kind of walk the item hierarchy and see the relationships between all these items. So I've got a couple documents open here. So you can see I'm looking at this design specification document. I can see that document has some content. There's change requests against some of those documents. There's test cases related to some of those specifications. So this is the item view and what that looks like, but we can also look at this in a document-centric view. So if I look at my design specification document, this is what we call the document view. So here, if you look over on the left, we give you an outline that you can walk through your document. And if you look as I'm clicking through here, so I'm clicking through on the left, it navigates to the right to the specific content that I'm looking for, right? Which is really useful when you get very big documents, because you can have documents that have thousands of requirements. And when you do this little kind of navigator or outline view, it helps you navigate through the document very easily. You can see that my document has some structure, right? So I can look at, there's a heading here, there's content underneath that heading, and then there's just some flat content in here as well. So I can structure this however I like. I can create as many contents or headings and sections within the document as I like, and I can structure the document and move content around. Very easy to do. So here you can see this heading. There's rich content here. If I right-click, you'll see I've got things like spelling or spell check. You can insert content, so you can have bulleted lists and numbered lists. So all the sort of rich text features that you'd expect in a typical document editor are here as well. And moving content around really easy. So if I have this, you can see this specification right now is in section 2. If I want to move that into the first section, I can do it in a few different ways, but I can actually just drag the content up, and I can say move it to a subsection of 1. I'll say sure. So you'll see that now became 1.9. So it's easy to do that. I can do it in a few different ways, but that's probably the easiest way to do it. And you can move content around as well. So if I want to just reorder this, you see I've moved below and move above options, as well as moving to a subsection if I want to. It's giving me a prompt to tell me to ask to confirm if I want to do that every time. Now I can click on the little indicator there and it'll stop asking me if I want it to. So here my content, if I want to insert new content, I want to create a new requirement, I can just hit the insert key. It gives me a new line. So you can see I was on section 1. I was on 1.9 before, so since I was clicked there, it's putting this as 1.1. It's new content, so there's no ID for this yet. It hasn't. So right here, it's new. All of these items have unique IDs. So unlike in what you'd have in something like Word, where each item is just content within a Word document, each of these line items is an item in a relational database. So each has their own unique ID, its own relationships to other items in the system, and its own ability downstream to relationships to when things change. So here I'm writing a new specification, and it's just a simple text editor, so I can say new spec and add whatever content I want. You can see that it's spell checking as I go here. Right, so all the benefits of kind of working in a document editor with the additional capability of working in a having items stored in a relational database. Excuse me. Sorry, folks. Just fighting a little bit of a cold here. So if I look at an item, so here I'm looking at the specification 1199. You can see it's got textual content, it has some relationships as well. So you can see in this external traces, that's actually relationships to parts in Windchill that have been established already. You can see that this also has upstream and downstream traces. So the upstream traces are actually just the relationship from the specification to other content in the document. All right, so it's 1.9, so it's obviously got a relationship to this heading. The downstream traces, if I hit content and I look at relationships and I'll look at downstream traces, are the relationships between the specifications and downstream content like test cases. So I've got a couple of test cases here. And one of those test cases actually has been run, it's failed, and has a defect that's been created against it. I'll go into that in a little more detail in a moment, and we'll show what it looks like when actual content changes and how downstream items are informed when things change. So we'll walk through that in just a second here. Just bring this down. A few other things I'll list note here. You can see you've got not just rich content, but you can have tables, you can have images embedded. So you can see got a few different images embedded here. Let's move that over. All right, so you can add lots of rich content to your documents. When things change, there's a few kind of nice capabilities that go beyond what you can do in the document editor. So when I'm making changes, and if you can see I've changed this one a few times, another change. I'll save that. Now, a couple things you'll see that happened here. One, obviously that content changed, but if I look at my downstream traces now, you see that the test cases, so I'm looking at this item 1199, and here is the relationship for 1199 here. The test cases that were related to this are now marked suspect. All right, so they're marked upstream suspect. That's the system telling downstream content that something above it has changed. All right, so if I'm a user who's assigned to this test case, I'll just open that up so you can see there's obviously additional fields on these as well. So beyond just what you see, they have properties. They contain different details. You can have step information, trace relationships. You can have attachments to your test cases and to any item. It could be a requirement or a test case. Here I can see additional information, so things like what state it's in. All of these things have a workflow, so you can kind of move them through their different states. And this test case has results, so I can see all the times it's been run and what the result of each run has been. So this has been run 5 times, passed all the 5 times. And every item in integrity, we do maintain a complete uneditable history of everything that's happened to that item from inception. So you can see who has made changes, when changes have been made, and what changes have been made throughout the history of the item. And that is the case for every item in integrity. So you have that kind of audit log always available, and you can always go back and look at the history of an item. So if I'm a tester and I'm working on that test case and I see that my test case has now been marked suspect, I'll know that I might need to run that test again, or I might even need to make a change to that test case before I can run it again based on the change to the requirement. Clearing those suspect traces, really easy. So if I just right click, you can see I have an option just to clear the suspect trace. So that's me indicating that I've looked at it, I've assessed the change, and I've determined that the change doesn't impact my test case, or I've accounted for the change. And I can clear that suspect trace when I'm done. as we're talking about making changes to the documents or making changes to the requirements, another nice capability is actually being able to view the difference history of a document. So if I look, so I'm looking at my document content here. If I look at choose view differences, you can see, actually I'll show you the baselining first. So I do have the ability to create baselines of a document. So at any point in time, I can take a snapshot of what that document looked like at a point in time. I can give it a label. I can add comments to that label, so why I'm taking the snapshot or what the significant milestone is at this point in time. Let's say it creates a baseline for me. And what that allows me to do is essentially version the document and then look at differences in that document over time. So if I look at the view differences option here, I can look at my different labels. I can look at all the different labels that have been created. So if I want to look at the label I just created or the one that I just created and compare it to how this document looked originally or on the first baseline, this brings up our view differences pane, and it gives you a very sort of word track changes like view that shows you what things have changed, what new content has been added, what content has been removed over time, and you can scroll through the document and look at all the changes that have happened over time. All right, so you can see where there's been edits, you can see where content's been added and removed kind of in a nice graphical way. Excuse me. This same authoring experience that we have for requirements management also extends into test management. So if I'm interested in looking at a test document, and here you can see very similar look, same capabilities apply, and so the authoring experience in test management is exactly the same as in requirements management. You can manage the content exactly the same way. And when you want to relate test cases to your requirements, you can do it really simply. Like here, I'll just drag this one over. Oops, try it again here. Oh, it's being finicky because of my shared screen here. Sorry about that. Let's see if it'll allow me to do it this way. All right, it seems to be just acting up because of my screen shares. But normally what I can do is I can actually take these documents and I can place them side by side. Let's see if I can pop this one out. Sorry, that for some reason the screen share is actually, oh, there, now it's working. All right, let's see if I can do that again. Just going to reopen that test document. There it goes. So it is, I just open that test document, and now I can look at these documents side by side. And creating actual relationships between the contents is really easy. I can actually just use a drag and drop. Drag content over, and you can see it gives me the option to create traces. So I can do that in either direction. and it knows that the kind of relationship between a requirement and test is a validates relationship. So I can do that in the other direction as well. So it's common that I'd have multiple test cases against a requirement, particularly if it's a complex requirement. So I can take multiple content items. I can select multiple test cases and drag them over to a requirement and create traces that way as well. So I can do it in either direction. All right, so where it was a validated by relationship, dragging a requirement to a test case, if I drag it the other way, it gives a validates relationship. A test case validates a requirement, and you can see it established all of those relationships real quick. All right, so you can see I've added a couple or another test case to that requirement. We just had 2 before, and now there's 3. Yes. So the other relationship we saw was the relationship, so we saw the relationship from a test case to a requirement. You can also look at the relationship between test case and parts assets in a system like Windchill. So you can see that this specification has been related to multiple parts. And that same suspect tracing capability extends into Windchill as well. So we notify your Windchill items when a requirement that they're related to has changed, and give you visual indicators there as well. So if I look here, this is our little manage traces applet. So I can look at this in Windchill as well. I'll show you what it looks like in Windchill. But in the manage traces applet, looking at that specification, I can see a part that's related to. I get this little visual indicator here, and this tells me that there's actually, this little red icon tells me that there's actually a suspect trace. So it tells me that the requirement that this part has been related to has changed, and we saw that change that we made. And relating here is really simple as well. So you can actually just click on, oh, sorry, it just logged me out there. So you can click on a specification with the part selected, select the kind of trace that you want to make, whether you're allocating a relationship or you want to create a satisfier relationship, and just hit apply. And creating the traces is that simple. How I got this open is actually just directly from Windchill. So if I was looking at a Windchill item, oops, let me look, I think I had that open. Let's see if I can reopen that. Sorry, on that screen here. Oh, sorry, I must have closed it. All right, let's go back here. So here I have Windchill open. So I can just navigate through my part structure. I can see if I have, let's see what has a relationship here. All right, let's just open a new one. So this is showing a part structure. Here I'm looking at the traces from parts to related items. So if I hit the little plus here, what it does is it opens. Oh, it's giving me a little login issue. We'll just work off the one we got open already then. So hitting that plus just opens this little applet. So it'll open the part that you're looking at. You can navigate through your documents and look for the individual requirements that you want to relate to. Sorry, a little hiccup on the wind chill side. I'm not sure why it's not letting me show that right now. All right, so let me just come back to integrity. Yep. And you can navigate directly from here to the wind chill parts as well. So you can see there's a little view option there. So this is the document view for my specification document. Every item in integrity has also just a straight item view. So if I look at this design spec in an item view, I can see it's got different properties, relationships that it has. I can attach files to the document. I can see all the different labels that have been created. Of course, I can see history, as we can for every item. And with documents, you also have a workflow wrapped around them. And every item in integrity also does have a workflow wrapped around it. So this allows you to add an element of change control to your documents. You can lock it down in different states. So you can say when your document is constrained, when it would require a change request, or valid change request in order to make a change to requirements within it. You can determine when that document is closed off to changes, so when it's published or delivered, you can see those are all closed phases. Or you can, in some environments, some folks have a phase for their documents where they want it just completely open to change, where it wouldn't require change request to make changes. And there you can just leave it in your open state, and there it's just open for change for anyone who has permission to the document. Speaking of permissions, integrity does have a complete a granular permission structure as well. So you can determine who has visibility to items within a project, and then what kind of permissions they have to the items within that project as well. So whether they have just read permissions or if they have read-write, you can make all those determinations. And you can see in the workflow, if I kind of hover over any of these, you can say who is actually able to transition this document into the different states. And you have complete granular control over that. Okay. So that is about everything in the tool I planned on showing. And we wanted to leave time open for questions. So I don't know if, Becca, if you've got any questions that have kind of piled up there as we've been going through.
Not yet. I asked everyone to hold until the end, so let me just go ahead here. I will chat everyone, so you know you can just type in your questions for Che. And if you don't have any questions right now, you know, you can definitely email us at info@tristar.com, and then we can have a resource get back with you. We'll also post this recording on TriStar's Resource Center. I'll go ahead and get that up within a couple hours here. It doesn't look like anyone has any questions right now, so thank you, Che. I know you have a cold, so thank you.
We can also share the deck if you like as well, the slide deck that we used.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll attach that on the webinar replay then if you want us to. But if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, thank you, Che, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.